How's it going, Sean?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm good. Vince Orlando, this is The Human Condition.
Sean Davis.
And as always, we don't save a lot of time for small talk. We'll we'll delve right into this week's subject matter, which honestly this is something that's been debated since the beginning of time, or at least a construct in human mind since the beginning of time. The fact that, or the belief that this reality, the physical reality, is an illusion. It's illusory. Now, this goes all the way back to Sanskrit, where the concept of the world is as you see it. So what we take in physically from the physical realm and how we project that back out actually creates our physical universe. It's an interesting concept to me, and it is the concept that pushed me into spirituality. So I was without God, and again, I don't know what that is, but you know, the religious concept of God for a very long time in my life. I didn't have a need for spirituality. I was very selfish, very egocentric in my motivations in life, and I didn't have a need, or at least I didn't believe I did, for this higher power. And around the time that my son was born, I felt this unconditional love, so it rattled me. I didn't know that existed. If you would have told me, and people did tell me the concept of unconditional love, I laughed, said it's bullshit. Around the same time that my son was born, I was experimenting with a drug called ketamine. I'd read a medical book on ketamine psychedelic therapy. So I embarked on this, and that opened me up further to these emotions that were foreign to me. And for whatever reason, during this time, I got real interested in quantum physics. And I remember watching a documentary called, it was What the Bleep Do We Know? And I learned about the double slit experiment. And the double slit experiment speaks on the duality of subatomic particles. So particles exist either as, well, predominantly as waves, and then once consciousness is brought in to observe these particles, which are really just quantum points in time and space, they collapse into a particle. And it sent me into this whole different realm of thinking, to where I'm like, okay, so what's holding the physical universe that we see together? And I dug more and more, and this, in all actuality, is what led me into spirituality, because then I started understanding. I'm like, okay, so the things that the mystics talked about, that Jesus talked about, that Buddha talked about, I'm like, there's science to it. And it changed my entire life. And that's where the journey started for me into, spirituality. I don't believe it's too distant a relative of quantum physics, because it's been proven that the material doesn't exist in the way that we believe. I mean, this goes back to Einstein, E = mc squared. Well, we know that matter at a certain speed becomes energy. We know about the conservation of energy. Can't be created nor destroyed. Everything that you see and have within the physical realm, the energy is here to stay, and it's in this infinite loop of conversion between the physical and the spiritual, the conscious. So there's really only two worldviews that you can have. One is consciousness first, the other is material first. And I'm stuck in the consciousness first. I believe that what we see is illusory, and there's science to back that. That's not to say that the experiences that we have don't feel real to us, and that in the confinement of our five senses, that what we experience is not real, because it's very real to us, but no more real than the dream that we experience at night, which is very real to us in the moment also. And dreams, in all actuality, are made up of the same subatomic particles that our thoughts are, that our physical universe is. Everything comes from the same source. So that's how we'll start the show. That's how we'll start the show. This when you brought up the subject, I'm like, man, this is I contemplate it, all the time.
I've been listening to a lot of Terrence McKenna
Love
lately,
that guy.
and I've been listening to a lot of Dennis McKenna too.
There's another McKenna.
Yeah, it's his brother. So, a long time ago, because I lived in Colorado, and I was able to talk to Terrence McKenna quite a few times. And I was 20, 21 years old when I started talking to him. He would come to Naropa in Boulder, Colorado a lot, and he did a lot of work there. And I just remember things, and I didn't understand it at the time. I kind of did, I kind of didn't. I was participating a lot in a lot of different psychedelic stuff, but that your reality is an illusion based on, he said media was the number one offender, television, the internet, where just they've recognized that violence and sex to the mind subliminally triggers a lot of things. So if I remove my culture, forget our identity for a moment, forget that I'm from the West Side, forget the fact that my dad's half Syrian, half Polish, forget all ethnic labels that I've been labeled. Let's remove any form or title of religion. Let's remove that I'm a member of AA. Strip everything down to where you're just a spiritual being.
To the I am.
To the I am.
Right.
And operate from the I am, but you still got to unravel a lot of beliefs that were given to you by your parents and stuff.
That's
So
the human
once-
condition.
So I unravel that stuff. I strip away all my titles and all my stuff, and I'm operating as just a spiritual being on the planet. I'm going to have a much different reality. The reality that we're in is based on systems and programs.
Right. It's the human way.
Right. Start unplugging yourself from different systems and cut yourself off from all media whatsoever, and just take your interactions with people on a day-to-day basis as what they are. It's a little interesting, isn't it?
Well, it's necessary, and where my mind goes with this, it just goes further into, we are light particles. Everything is, the building blocks are all the same for everything, and so even our interactions as humans, because human is it only exists here in the physical realm.
But you're controlled.
You're definitely controlled.
Your reality is controlled.
So when you step outside of that, and you can only do it for brief periods, that's what transcendence is. So when you get into these transcendental states, whether it be through psychedelics, whether it be through peak experiences, whether it be through meditation, whatever the case is, when you get into these transcendental states, it is permanence, because that's the truth. But while we exist in these frames and we are confined to the five senses, even the monk who meditates 10 hours a day, they still have to take a piss. They still have to take a shit. They're still going to go to sleep.
Right.
They're still human functions. So I think even beyond that, into where we are all one. And I know in a lot of new thought and new age stuff that's thrown around a lot, but I really contemplate the fact that we are all one. Even if you think about the Big Bang, and in your scientific mind, you think that is the source of all creation, the Big Bang, how could we not be all one?
Even your language, the English language, let's just say we'll take English, is a control.
Right.
Because we all speak, the world is full of different languages. He was talking about a story about what happens if we were all at the Tower of Babel.
That's also human.
Right. Because
That
at that time, in the biblical sense, in that story, most people believed that we were, telekinetic, speaking with the mind.
How could we not be?
We did not need, and then we all speak 1,000 different tongues, and now we're all divided, and now a control comes in. Thus, if you all spoke one language, I mean, just think about how further ahead in the world we'd be if the whole world could communicate with each other.
See, that,
fluidly.
Because we can. Because that's, at our core, that's what we are. So what's the point of the human condition then? If we come from that, right? If we are spiritual beings having a human experience, there's a point to this. So overcoming, I believe that getting to those transcendental states and then trying your best to implement this oneness into your daily life, that's what the human condition is for. And then where we take that as souls back to whatever realm, whatever dimension there is, where we take that, I don't know what that is. But I believe that there's a purpose for our time here, and this is school for whatever it is, that whatever we are, whatever this soul thing is, whatever this energy is. I don't know what that looks like once you get to the next place, but I know that there's a reason for this, because when we talk about the sixth sense, well, that's more real than anything we have access to. That innate sense that even a dog has, and they've done these experiments. I think it was Rupert Sheldrake did an entire book on dogs and how, and this relates to science too, quantum physics, quantum entanglement, how they know an hour before the owner gets home that the owner's home. They measured the reactions in the molecular structure of these animals. To me, that's fascinating, and it just goes back to our oneness. When are you familiar with quantum entanglement?
Not so much.
So quantum entanglement, in real layman's terms, it's once particles interact, they're connected.
Yeah.
Once you separate, so you separate a proton, and they've done this, and they've tested it, and I think the longest they've ever tested it in distance was 7 miles apart in different labs. So you stimulate the one proton, the other one reacts exactly the same as if it's being stimulated also in the other lab, because it's been entangled. Now, that goes against Einstein's light speed, which is the constant in the universe, according to Einstein. That completely good, because for these two particles to communicate in real time means that they're still connected regardless of this artificial distance that we perceive as human beings. They've never left each other. So, of course, I have a saying for my fanatically religious friends, and it's God doesn't speak English. So whatever you think God is, the entire universe is frequency. That's it. That's the only. So while you're sitting there praying for more money, what you're emoting to the universe is, I don't have, lack. You're going to get lack. You're going to continue to get lack. It's going to manifest in different ways until you learn how to be grateful and gravitate beyond that lack. But you're saying these words that make absolute sense to you. I'm saying what I want. Why am I not getting what I want? Well, because what you're emoting to the universe, to God, whatever you want to call that, is that you don't have. So you're going to continue to not have. Because the truth is, reality is an illusion, and God don't speak English. You gotta get in tune with that telepathic, that sixth sense, that part of you that the powers that be would call, what would they call it? Paranormal, bullshit. Whatever they want. Spooky. Einstein even. What did he call it? Spooky action at a distance.
Look at Facebook. Facebook is a good judge of different realities. I'd say, when I look at Facebook, I see most human beings more interested in taking a picture of the moment than actually enjoying the moment.
It's quite common.
So I'd rather take a picture of the experience that I'm supposed to be experiencing, but my ego is like, I need a motherfucking selfie so I can show on Facebook all my friends this experience that I'm not even actually being a part of because I'm taking a fucking photo. That's your reality. And I just think human beings in today's time, everyone is just so overthinking their reality. And it's all driven by material. It's all driven by what I don't got. How much can I spend? Can I get the new fucking Yukon? Can I dress up this garbage can? Because there's nothing really inside when someone spends all their focus and their money on projecting a reality that is completely false.
Well, that's the sleeping state. I wouldn't call that overthinking. I would call that robotic. You know, and that's how we're conditioned.
Systematic.
Yeah, and that's
programmed.
It is programmed.
To consume as much as fucking humanly possible so I can... Let's take a picture, Vince. You know?
There's some value to that. Some. When it's like any other addiction. When it overrides you. When it overrides you and it takes you, like you said, out of the experience, well, what's the point?
How many likes did I get,
Yeah,
Vince?
what's
How
the
many
point?
people commented, Vince?
I need that.
And
you know, and it's bad for kids. You know, it's really bad for kids. I try my best, maybe not hard enough, but I put limits on their tablets. And
my reality isn't going so good because I didn't get enough likes.
Right,
Vince.
your reality is your self-worth is now. And you know, I don't want to get into that too much because it is an epidemic, but it's predicated on your. I mean, I guess just call them likes, but it's really your self-worth is based on people you don't even know pressing a button and giving value to who you are as a human being. How are you? If I was a kid growing up right now, I would say, fuck off with that. Of course we get likes. You know what I mean? I remember being a kid, and I remember hearing things from my stepdad, who's a very spiritual man. And I remember hearing things from him, and I'm like, it's complete horse shit. No, I got to go out there, and I got to get money. And I remember him telling me, really, I was just insecure and poor, so that became my function.
It'll always become that way.
You know, so I didn't want to hear shit of what, but now I know that what he was saying was true, was absolutely true. So I know that when I tell my kids, well, you know, and I know that I can't expect them to believe what I say, that's not going to matter in 20 years. How many times did you hear that when you were a kid? No, it matters now. So again, being confined to the five senses it's a sort of prison, but it's only if you stay stuck. You know, when we talk about reality being illusory, which it is, there's still an experience to be had, and that's what duality is. That's what we spoke about in the first episode. It's that just inherently by being human, there's a dualistic nature to you if you believe in the consciousness first model, which I do. Yeah, I think consciousness, the conscious interaction, and I think quantum physics proves that beyond a shadow of a doubt now. But conscious interaction is what, I don't know if there's a conscious designer. Maybe not. Doesn't matter to me. But
check this shit out. So one of the clinicians at work was like, man, go to court with this dude. You know, he's doing great. You know, we just want to make sure that he comes back, you know, because it was like a show cause for a probation violation, which the guy had just been kicking major ass in the group, in the treatment program. So I go down there, and I'm habitually early for everything. It's just the way I'm programmed by my father. So I get down there, and I hear these attorneys talking about different matrices.
Hmm.
So they have different matrices
Yeah.
depending on crimes that you've committed, or let's not say crimes you've been committed, charges. So you're charged with 50 grams of cocaine or under drug possession. So in this matrix that they have laid out, and they call it a matrix, and they have many of them. They implement certain things into this matrix. Race, where you're from, zip code, age, whether you're single, married, whatever. And there's a point system that's added to all these things to calculate where you fit in this matrix. So in case you get convicted, this is where your sentencing guidelines are. And it's not really, it's based on some fucked up shit. Like, don't ever allow me in a courtroom early and start listening to lawyers, because I was just so surprised at this, because they're all prosecutors. And I'm like, how is that? Like, here we are, more systems and matrices that are defining who we are, what we are, by a point system that is supposed to what?
But they don't define who we are. That's part of the programming, is they make us believe that we're that.
But it's going to determine my reality. That point system will determine my reality.
It can.
It will
in the
determine
moment.
whether I go to jail, or whether I get probation, or whether I just get a fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a large issue with all of this. Huge.
I think everybody on the planet who has a brain does. The system that's used to control the masses, it's flawed, and always has been. I'm always missing my mic, man. I'm always missing
Step
my
up
mic.
to the mic, Vince.
But that's how the system's designed. So when you talk about things like television and the media, I don't think maybe there is a grand conspiracy. Maybe there is this Illuminati organization. Maybe there is. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I see it for what it is, and I know that it's part of the programming. I think the advent of all of these things, of all of these systems, is human nature. You want to control things. You want the least path of resistance. I believe that's human nature. Do I think it's gotten out of control? As smart and technologically as advanced as we are, yes, it's completely out of control. And the Matrix is going to get worse, because AI is what's next. And all a computer can do is calculate according to a matrix. That's all it can do. It can't do anything else. And we're putting so much stock into these machines. We're already a cyborg. I mean, Elon Musk said it best. He's like, we're already cyborgs. It's just that our data, our ability to transmit data back and forth is slow, because all we got is our thumbs and our fingers.
So you went up north lately.
I did.
Tell me, when you went out on the lake with your kids, you left the phone in the cabin.
Absolutely not.
You took it with you?
Oh, yeah. It didn't work, but I want pictures. I want pictures. We'll have memories, but I want pictures.
See, I've been leaving the phone alone a lot lately, because the memories will be in here.
Do you ever go through old pictures? Me, I lost all my old stuff. So when I first moved back from LA, everything that I had from childhood, because it was all hard copy then, it wasn't digital. I lost everything.
It's in here, and it's in here.
Sometimes you want to share that stuff with your kids. You want to share some awards. You want to look like there's overkill with the selfies and all that bullshit, but then there's memories that you want to keep forever. And in all honesty, most of the pictures I take, there's the handful that I'll post, and it's mainly with me and the kids, but most of the pictures I'll probably never see again. But then there's that time where I'm cleaning out the phone or I'm doing whatever, and I'm like, oh man, I like Facebook for the memory thing. because I'll see my kids pop up during times that were special. And as much as I can say it's in here, well, it doesn't get triggered until I see it. And then that seeing it sparks that part of the brain, brings me back to that moment. There's a nostalgia to it. Has it become a sickness? Absolutely. But
Yeah.
I'll be damned if I've never fished with my kids. You know what I mean?
Go fishing and don't take the phone. Just poles, the bait, and the fish, and the boat. Just no phone, and see how you feel.
Fishing's the wrong thing for me. That's not. Yeah, that's not the. I'm not a fishing guy, but
Go water ski. Go tubing. Rent a boat.
well,
Go tubing.
we
And leave the phone at the cabin.
we went kayaking and they were asking me to take pictures and I left the camera. I left the camera for that.
And how did it feel? Did it feel freeing?
I wish I could have taken a picture of them when they wanted the picture.
Yeah.
You know where the phone gets turned off is when I meditate. If I'm going into it's not a Dharma meeting.
Yeah.
It's not refuge anymore. It's Dharma.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when I'm going in there, that phone's non-existent. I don't. I'll do what I do before I get in there, but that's my unplug time.
Yeah, I've been ditching the phone a lot.
I need to ditch it from my bedroom. That's what I need. And I don't know how many studies I have to read because I know it's true. Like the worst thing you can do is roll over and grab your phone in the morning.
Yeah.
And my habit is to go. So I have everything connected right there. I don't need to see what the company did the night before. You know what I mean? I don't need to go into our bank account and look at that shit.
It's all these images are shaping the reality that we live in.
Right.
And
Well, chicken or the egg, you know what I mean? Or are we shaping this reality? It's
I don't think some people know how to switch their reality.
most don't.
I don't think a lot of people know. All right, this is where I'm at, and I want to. I'm at point A, and over here is point B. I'm dreaming about point B. That's a reality that I think I would enjoy.
Right.
And I'm not attaching it to material. I'm attaching it to freedom. I'm attaching it to maybe having some systems be removed, losing some programming that no longer serves me.
And only you can do that for yourself. And when you do it, and you know this, the more you do it, the more alienated, at first anyway, you start to feel alienation, loneliness, because you don't fit in. And we were taught to fit in as kids. We wanted to fit in so bad it hurt.
Yeah.
So that I know when I started to unplug, I'm still very much part of it, but it's different now than it ever was. It's different. And I don't really care what people think. To the point so I'm unplugged, but I'm still plugged in as a human being. I'm still part of this system. I contemplate what it might be like to roll out into the woods and set up shop and hunt.
Off
the
grid.
land. Yeah, just
Off grid.
completely off grid. I think about it a lot.
Have you ever been hunting?
I don't hunt, no. That's
Go
why
hunting.
I'm not a fisher either.
So it's funny now because some of the old timers that I go hunting with actually take their phone out into the field with them, and it's interesting because when I first started hunting, I wasn't a very good hunter, and I would fall asleep out there. But I loved being out there, just it's like 2,200 acres of farmland, and, it was just, you just sit your chair down like early doe season in September, and you're just there. There is no phone. I'm there with my thoughts. And the longer that I'm sitting there, the more I'm detaching from my current reality. And I'm just starting to now look at the trees. And I'm looking at the bugs that are flying around. And I'm looking at the birds. And I'm kind of waiting for deer, but I'm looking at the sun. I'm noticing the smells of it's a soybean field or winter wheat or corn. And I'm noticing all these things. And I'm detaching from this reality that I'm like, oh, fuck, fucking holding on to, and I'm becoming more free. and I'm losing, like, where's my phone? I need to check it. Someone might have called me, my email. I'm losing that. The sense of urgency to check that stuff doesn't exist when I don't have my phone out in the woods. It'll be there when I get back to the phone.
So are you attaching to the woods then? Because this is still part of the illusory reality
course.
that we're speaking of.
But I would rather have my reality be attached to living things than computers and phones and shit, you know?
It depends on how you're connecting, whether or not you're actually connecting. Because there is a nature, there's so much to be said about disappearing into nature. But I think what nature does for me, when I'm with my kids, it's different because I have to be dad and interact, and we're creating memories, and we're still very much part of this matrix in a more healthy way. But so when the kids laid down for bed, when we were camping, I was out there by myself and looking at stars like I haven't seen in probably years. Just in that right there, that's my thing. You don't need a phone for that. You go out there and you just disappear. But it takes me into a state of being transcendental. And that's so I'm even detached further from the matrix, I guess. When I look up, I start to go someplace. And it doesn't last for long because I'm programmed to pull myself right back into this reality because it's scary. When you in the tank, I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you, but when the senses start to go, like sometimes I'll get like that and I'll be like, damn, I was just there. I was starting to slip out of and now all of a sudden I'm back in this tank again and I can feel my senses.
I could go in the tank for a while. Not necessarily like, so meditation, let's say at the Dharma, there was a few times where like I was in the tank for half the meditation.
And there's no
nothing.
No nothing. Just,
nothing, and just gone.
That's that spot. That's the reality.
For me, it's easier to get there when I'm sitting in the woods.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. When I'm looking at the stars, for me, it's easier for me to get there. If I'm having a bad moment and it's nighttime, I know all I got to do is go out and look up, and it's instant. And then I'm someplace else. I walk back into the same house, but I don't have the same emotions anymore. And it's about that real connection to the thing that is real. So we talk about reality being illusory. When you get to that state of transcendentalism, and again, it can be through psychedelics. People have these experiences where you feel this oneness and you know that that's the only truth there is. When you get to that place, it can't be denied anymore. For you to deny that is the truth, you really have to blind yourself. It's slip into a state of addiction to the phone, to alcohol, to whatever the case is.
I think a lot
to where
of
you don't have to know that you're lacking that.
I think besides the basic reasons for addiction and alcoholism, I think a lot of it is based on that our spiritual being doesn't really like the reality of the third dimensional reality.
It's lack of connection to the truth.
Right. So
you get these instant gratification moments.
So all this social economic warfare structure, let me just drink my way out of it.
Right.
Let me just numb myself and just blot it out because I don't think they've learned how to maneuver. Took me a minute to learn. I'll tell you, being on felony probation, I learned how to work the system. I did not know. I had someone show me because I was like, I just was like, this is some bullshit. And actually, it was my first sponsor was like, dude, you need to back up off some stuff here because you're like taking it and you're grinding it up here. Like, give them what they want and know that it's not real.
Got to play that game.
You got to play the
Yeah.
game. Oh, here's my $260. You know, here's $130 for my tether, and here's my sign-in sheet for my community service hours. You play that game because that's the reality that I stuck myself into. But the thing was, there's just so many trap doors in today's society to keep you from really being free, to getting to that reality where I'm less programmed. I'm thinking freer. I'm not being influenced by the television or social media. I'm detaching from this stuff. I'm making choices based on my own spiritual condition.
Well, and that's the way you detach from those things, from the conditioning. And this is where 12-step, where they got it right, man, is gratitude, acceptance. It's in these things where, you know, because you're conditioned to believe that you have less, so you need to go buy more, right? That's the society we live in. You want what the next person has, and if you don't have it, you're less than. So this conditioning exists. To say that it doesn't, that's ridiculous, because there's some people, they'll get all spiritual, then all of a sudden they think you...
But it's promoted everywhere.
Well, and that's the whole point.
Consumerism is promoted everywhere.
So when you learn... So when you were talking about being in the system, I got a drunk driving, right? And I had to go through that whole thing, and it was later in life. So, and I was pretty well established in my head, and it's easy to look at the system and point out its numerous flaws, right? But when you get to a different level of consciousness, you find a way to be grateful for the circumstances, because no matter how much bullshit you think it is, there's a lesson in there for you. And to rise above that, that's where that next level shit is. That's where you detach. That's where you're Viktor Frankl sitting in a concentration camp, and all you have to do is picture your wife, and next thing you know, you're creating logotherapy because you just so happen to live through that. They weren't able to encapsulate your spirit. That's that next level shit. And that's how I try to view everything now, because I understand that this is illusory. I understand that it's all frequency, you know. And Michio Kaku, he's a theoretical physicist. Yeah. He explained frequency best. So, because I can't really, it's hard to wrap your brain around. Okay, so there's another me vibrate, because really, when you get down to the core of what a subatomic part, it's energy, quanta. It's energy fluctuations in this infinite space. That's all it is. There is no solid. The Pauli exclusion principle.
Yeah.
Are you familiar? So we're not even sitting on these chairs. We're
I know.
We're risen a nanometer above. So when you start to think about those things, and then you start to think about frequency, then you go back into yourself and say, well, what level of frequency am I vibrating at? No wonder the world around me sucks, because I'm complaining about everything all the fucking time. That's why I'm part of the goddamn reason that everything is shitty, because I believe it's shitty. And it's hard when life throws curveballs at you, and to get out of that victim mindset and say, look, I'm controlling this. I have to take respect. Even when you're victimized, once you're out of the point of victimization, to rise above that, there's a lesson there. There's something in there that's beautiful. Explain that to a person that's dying of cancer, right? It's hard, you know, but I know that if I were to fall to it tomorrow, I would find a lesson in it, even if that meant I died the next day, because I'm not attached to the outcome that, well, I should be here. I've learned to detach from that, because this is illusory. But the experiences are very real, and I think very important to where we go next, whatever that is.
Yeah. So, to change my frequency, you know, when I understand the game and the system and how it works, and that there's a system in almost everything, you know, for me to not participate in it
on the system's terms
raises my vibration alone.
Right.
You said gratitude. Yesterday in the group, I told the dudes, I was like, you want to change your reality. There was one of them was talking about, actually it was the cat that I went down to the courthouse for. He was doing random acts of kindness, but he had an expectation.
That's
So he hadn't learned, but I was teaching him, I'm like, you open the door for someone and they don't say thank you. He's like, man, that's some bullshit. And I was like, well, don't do it expecting anything. Do it because I'm pushing forward, because I'm doing random acts of kindness. I'm moving things forward energetically.
Right.
And I'm sowing something. What I'm sowing ain't no one's business but me and my God. And, because he was like, man, I said good morning to this guy walking down the street. He just looked at me funny. And then I wanted to and I'm like,
Been there.
Yeah, and I'm like, don't worry about that, because I was like, your random act of kindness might have caught him so far off guard, but you don't know what it's going to do for that man later on in the day.
And it doesn't
may
matter.
change his day. The ripple effect.
Right.
Just
keep putting that goodness out there.
Just keep putting it out there non-stop. Don't ever stop. And by doing that, because I can't talk about like changing frequencies and stuff in the morning. I tried a few times. It gets a real interesting conversation. Some dudes get lost in it, but that alone, built in with your gratitude lists, and you seeking whatever higher power concept you got, is going to raise your frequency. And I always think somehow, some way, the more I raise my frequency, the less the illusion of the reality I can separate myself from it.
And you can because you're at a different frequency. And Michio Kaku, and that's what I got lost on, but Michio Kaku, because I'm trying to, in my physical mind, this is years ago, before I really started delving into quantum physics, I'm really trying to picture how could there be a me right here in this same space, because I still think in terms of physical, right? And Michio Kaku said, so think of frequency like this. So you're driving in crowded downtown traffic, and you're listening to a radio station, you're in there jamming out. Whatever's coming through that speaker at that moment, that's very real to you. Your experience in that in real time. Now you look at the person in the car next to you, they're on a complete, they're listening to Bach. They're doing something completely different. You're on JLB and, so, but you're vibing out. That's real to them, that experience. This experience real to you. Now at simultaneously, every radio station in the city is passing through my body, or those waves.
Right.
And until I tune in to that frequency, that experience is not real to me. And when you think of us as energy, and that is what we are, now it starts to make sense. Frequency is predetermined for us in a lot of ways. We come into this world, we're taught, we're given that name, we're given this ethnicity, we're given this country, we're given all these things and taught at a very young age when we're impressionable and being programmed, this is what it is. And that's the beauty of trauma, is that it rattles you to make you question these things. That's why, as long as addiction brings you to that point, God, thank you. Thank you for that. The Buddhists say, be grateful for your pain. Took me forever to actually understand that and feel it at a visceral level. But when I got that drunk driving, I woke up in jail. I was on one of my PTSD-induced benders. Woke up in jail, realized I was in jail, and I looked up immediately and I said, thank you. Didn't know who I was talking to, but I was grateful because I knew something good was going to come of it. I knew it was, and it did.
I had to learn that my traumas don't define me. My experiences that I've incurred through this lifetime don't define me.
Nothing defines you except you.
But for a long time, I allowed my experience through life to mold a character that might have not even been really all that real.
Right.
I held on to the trauma and all this stuff.
Became your story.
And I was my story.
Right.
And so when I let my story go,
You lost the I am.
right.
The real deal. The
Right.
real you.
So now it is just the I am that I am and nothing more.
Mm-hmm. Except for sometimes it's not.
Well, I can't have I am on my paycheck, you know.
Yeah.
I wish I could, you know, just direct deposit that, please, you know.
But isn't that the beauty of this experience? Is, you know, I like Nirvana, the idea of Nirvana. That sounds, but I like this experience too. I like the human experience. And I think that it's our goal here to find a way to make that higher self and lower self work in tandem. That's where, you know, social media, going back to that, that's where it can be so extremely powerful. If people, but you know, for the most part, we're stuck in the matrix.
If I had a part of Facebook that just said high vibrational only,
you know what I mean? Like that's the thing. And you know what, it does that because when I started years ago posting shit that inspired me, a lot of my friends from the old neighborhood, they weren't having that shit, and that was good.
Yeah.
So it started. People started falling off. Oh, he's on that spiritual shit. Oh, that dumb shit. That's fake. That's sanctimonious. That blah blah blah. And those were the people that I didn't need in my life. They didn't need to be there any longer. So it's social media has been very powerful for me because it let me establish in a public forum, this is who I am today. It also, before I got to where I am now, also allowed me to say some stupid shit in a very public forum and look like an asshole. But that was good because I was able to learn from it. I think it's powerful because here's the thing. I think I was searching at a very young age for these things we talk about. But in my neighborhood, nobody was talking about this shit. And we had books and we had school and we were confined to the school that we went to and the ideas there. I couldn't reach out. I couldn't search through a library and find the shit that we're talking about. It just wasn't presented to us. People didn't know.
None of this was presented to me. Tell you the truth, none of this stuff was ever presented to me, really, until I met Terrence McKenna. You know, and then, like, you know, it's like you run into a group of people that start talking about books that are thinking about the way you're wanting to think. Like, you know, it's like
That's powerful.
Like you have like 30 Morpheuses around,
Yeah.
like unplugging you from a
Matrix.
yeah, like a
The
matrix,
Matrix,
that I've
man.
been living in, and I was like, whoa. And you know how, you know, I will say, like, a lot of, you know, psychedelics help me detach from that ego driven reality that I had created, which was based on not bullshit, but
Fear.
and beliefs that were like more handed down to me rather than me defining them myself. True, some of my experiences define some of my beliefs on my own, but I was able to unravel a lot of stuff out there, and I was able to learn a lot that I didn't know, and I was picking it up at, like, you know, it's funny because you live in Colorado for 5-6 years, and then I came back to Detroit, and it ain't no one thinking like that. You know, I mean, out there, you know, I talked to different clinicians and stuff out on the West, and, you know, a lot of them use microdosing instead of like antidepressants and all this other bullshit. You know,
It's real,
they
man.
the way to heal the brain is, you know, I had big pharma is nothing more than a system that's trying to control me. So, you know, I have to look to what we were doing 500 years ago.
Well, they had
1,000 years ago.
They had it right. And now the beautiful thing. Okay, we've science in the 1600s it split. Now there's church, now there's science, now there's these factions, these power structures. and it pulled us out of the possibility that we are all one. It's coming back now, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think technology plays a huge part in that. There's yin and yang to everything.
Yeah.
There's going to be negative content, but I think if we can get this right, I think there's a real opportunity to use these. What are we doing right now, right?
Right.
You know,
Raising consciousness.
and if there's more of and you see these things popping up more and more, and you see 20-year-old kids that are artists talking about higher levels of consciousness, shit's changing. There's also negative. You know what I mean? There's no getting around it. But I think it's good that we can see it and we can deal with it. And the hope is that people take it and they use it for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. But we're human. That's the human condition, right? So
Exactly.
I think we're getting to the end here. You got anything to say in closing?
Man, it was a real good. This was a good topic.
Yeah.
You know, we bring it heavy a lot. And,
You said it, and I was like, okay.
you know,
let's do that.
It was good to bring up. You can go a lot of different directions in this, but
So many.
you know, keep searching for your path.